When John Dawes first asked the Wooden Spoon Society to become involved with the 25th anniversary of the 1971 Lions Tour to New Zealand, we were delighted. We were pleased with the chance for Wooden Spoon, the charity of British rugby, to become associated with arguably one of the most successful Lions teams ever to leave these shores. In fact, a most successful sporting team in any category. Wooden Spoon is a team dedicated to making losing in life a little easier to bear. In our few short but remarkable years of growth, we are proud of the contribution, the caring contribution we have made to the more compassionate side of rugby football. This contribution has been recognized by the authorities in the game, who are now our patrons, the RFU, the SIU and the Welsh Rugby Union. Because Wooden Spoon is a sporting charity, we benefit losers in life who are either physically, mentally or socially disabled, particularly children and young people. But we are not a plastic bucket charity. We organize events, 80 to 90 a year, to raise our funds, just like the Lions reunion. We are also regional in our outlook. We have national committees to match the 4 home nations in Dublin, Edinburgh, London and Cardiff, and 12 regional committees covering the UK and Northern Ireland. We encourage these regional committees to raise their funds locally and spend their money locally. The central core adds, on a pound-for-pound basis, additional funds so that local funds are raised for local projects. This allows Wooden Spoon the perception of being a national charity, but very much at a local level. Some of the projects that we have funded, all of a capital nature, we're not interested in managing or running anything, are the Wooden Spoon Society Children's Unit for children with special needs at Llandoch Hospital in South Glamorgan. At London's Great Ormond Street Hospital, the Wooden Spoon Society Child Vision Unit is a world first in the technology used for diagnosing blindness in children yet unborn. The Wooden Spoon Society Preschool Centre at Solihull serves children under 5 outside the Education Act who are somehow physically or mentally or socially disadvantaged. We are very proud of our Wooden Spoon wheelchair terraces at Murrayfield and again at Twickenham. At Twickenham, we have now taken the number of wheelchair terrace users from 15 when we started to over 450 in the present stadium. Together with Murrayfield, we now give viewing pleasure to over 600 of our wheelchair rugby supporters. In Yorkshire, we have Lynham Farm. The Wooden Spoon project at Lynham Farm converted an old Victorian farm and now provides 1,200 holidays a year for the children of Leeds who are socially disadvantaged. Our current national project is to raise £500,000 to open the first Wooden Spoon Society Teenage Cancer Trust Unit to defeat this awful disease and the scourge of the young. By now you are probably asking, how can you become involved with Wooden Spoon? That is easy. Join us. You'll find the details on the back of the video. But now, let's have a look at the video. It contains extraordinary footage taken by HTV, or Harlech TV as they were then, cameramen who followed the tour to New Zealand, but because of BBC's contractual rights, could not have the same filming facilities. This film you are about to see was taken from treetops, through changing room windows, from the tops of buses. And I think you'll agree they have done a remarkable job. Almost as remarkable as the lions they were filming.
After a quarter of a century, a remarkable group of sportsmen are together again. The British Isles Rugby Union touring side of 1971. The lean and hungry look of old may have gone, but the affection born of more than 3 months in each other's company has drawn them to a reunion. It was New Zealand that they descended on, to make history as the first ever British side to win a test series there. Not only did they win, They did it in style with rugby that was as spectacular as it's memorable. They ran with the ball. They attacked with a huge hunger for success. It helped that in their ranks were some of the greatest players that the game has known. Gareth Edwards and his fellow Lions are to enjoy a reunion planned for them by the Wooden Spoon, a rugby-inspired charity that'll benefit from the Lions' presence. Their first rendezvous is the Celtic Manor Hotel outside Newport. Bob Hiller, Chico Hopkins and Gordon Brown are among the first arrivals.
Where are you going, Mervyn?
Mervyn Davies clearly has some early practice in mind. From the west, Derek Quinnell and Delmy Thomas travel together. Fullback J.P.R. Williams is here. And the 1971 captain of London Welsh, Wales and then the Lions, John Dawes.
I feel like John Wayne walking in here now.
The selectors and Carwyn and I had seen so many of the players, except that Carwyn was not on the selection committee as such. I was the chairman, and Carwyn and my views were equal, and we had no problems at all.
I think maybe Carwyn James's strength was the fact that he could get the best out of every individual for the benefit of the team, and there were many instances of that on tour.
If you look at Shankleys and Nicholsons and Busbys and now Ferguson and so on, you know, these people know how to handle sports people. The idiosyncrasy that is involved, how they adapt. We're all, whoever says that I want a team factor, yes, we're all part of a team, but you're also an individual. I mean, how you get up in the morning, how you spend the day, what you read, and things like that. Carwyn analysed all that. And in fact, he went, the first call he made after being appointed, he went to Old Trafford, and the manager at the time was Frank O'Farrell, a man he respected greatly. And he went to see and he spent 48 hours with him to talk about dealing day in, day out with professional people. Although we are amateur players, we have, for a period of that time, of whatever it was, nearly 4 months, we would be professional sportsmen. And so he looked and checked out on this. You know, but his magic was understanding the individual and getting the best out of them. And even those players were disappointed. He felt that they were still contributing. And it was, well, they talk about doctors in rugby. As far as I'm concerned, they bestowed that on Danny Craven, and fair enough. But there was only one real doctor in rugby, and that was Carwyn.
The Irish selector tried to push Mike Gibson, but we had no doubt who our captain was going to be, and that was Sid Dawes.
I think they had the selection on the Sunday after one particular international match, and Carwyn had promised that he would ring me with the decision whether or not I'd be captain. And I must have had 2,000 phone calls that day asking me was I captain or not. And of course each time the phone rang I thought it was Carwyn telling me that I was or wasn't. So by midnight I was a nervous wreck, but fortunately then Doug rang me up to say I had been captain. So I'd learned at that stage you never expect anything in rugby football.
The one absent friend in 1996 will be the man the Lions look back on as their guiding genius, Carwyn James, who died in 1985. Before the pre-tour sessions at Eastbourne, only the Welsh knew much about him. That would change.
There's no question about it that Carwyn James got a lot out of us. No question of that. What I liked about him, and probably his knowledge of forward play wasn't as good as his back play, but what he did was he used the resources around him and made us think, and I think that we all responded well to that. You know, I can think particularly, you know, there was Ray McLaughlin, for instance, and myself and one or two others that were around, and he would make us talk, make us think, and he had that knack at the end of it, getting what he wanted. And I think that we went out for the first time believing in our hearts that we could win. And, you know, we went on previous tours, you know, hoping that we could win. We didn't really believe it. And I think for the first time, 71, we believed that we could beat the All Blacks.
We knew what to expect. We knew it was coming, and hopefully, as I said, there was a new resolve amongst modern rugby players, I think. It was a turning point in British rugby, in my opinion, that, you know, we weren't going there for fun, for a jolly. Yes, if it came, wonderful, but we went there to win the test matches.
There was much to build on. Arthur Lewis was one of 14 Welshmen who eventually made it to New Zealand. Their nation had just won a Grand Slam in Europe.
We had a particularly strong team. We had a large nucleus in the Welsh squad, and we were playing a type of rugby which was exciting and adventurous, and a type of rugby which we had seen would win in New Zealand. And the fact that we were playing it each week at club level and then taking that into the national team, then probably we thought it's a simple step to take it into a Lions team.
With 13 Welsh go together in the end, and they all got on well. And I remember coming down the lift second day, and the Welsh boys had the Prince of Wales feathers on their lapels, and I said, I'll give you 5 minutes to put a line on there if you're going to wear bloody brooches on yourselves. And they did it. They removed them rapidly. And we, as I say, we all made sure that there were never 4 Welsh or 4 Scots together. And I think this is where the whole friendliness and the enjoyment of the tour came out.
Now, in May 1996, the nations mingle again, as Barry John holds court outside Cardiff City Hall. These teammates have kept in touch, though not all at once until now. Inside, a packed assembly room waits to greet them. The first of many standing ovations for these guests of honor. The audience has dug deep into its pockets to be here. But then, these were their heroes of yesteryear. Men who went into the All Blacks' den, who played 24, won 22, drew 1, lost 1. Speech-making is kept to a minimum to give the Lions every chance for conversation and reminiscence at their tables. And now, blinking in strong sunlight, the Lions report to the first tee for their golf tournament the next morning. Once again, the emphasis is on fun and fundraising, with no shortage of players anxious to partner the Lions, all in a good cause. Next stop on the reunion tour will be a posh London hotel. All the tour matches were exciting, of course, but inevitably the conversation turns to the Test series. Gerald Davies.
Doug Smith, Carwyn James and John Dawes spoke about the tour and the likely chances ahead, but Carwyn, I think, was the most convincing of them. In his quiet, philosophical manner, persuaded us, I think, that there was every chance that this Lions team, for the first time going to New Zealand, were likely to beat New Zealand. Doug Smith saying that, in his view, we were likely to win 2 Test matches, lose 1, and a draw, which was quite remarkable in the sense that who would ever want to predict and able to predict that a Test series would contain a draw? But that's the way they put it at the time. And I think that the players left this country in a fairly confident, upbeat mood.
Sailed on the sloop John B, my grandpappy and me, around Nassau town we did row, drinking all night.
A bit of harmony and some heraeth, the voices of men who are a long way from home. Shrugging off an early defeat in an ill-advised match against Queensland, Australia, the Lions won their first 10 games in New Zealand. Now they needed to step up a grade to take on the mighty All Blacks themselves.
On a tour overseas, the first test is a critical one because the Lions are facing the best that country has to offer. In a practical sense, it is important to win the game. But in a psychological sense, it is important to win it as well. Because it puts you one up, you're throwing the gauntlet down, and instead of chasing the home team are now having to chase you. And that is a good position to be in.
In front of 45,000 spectators at Dunedin, the Lions certainly knew they were in a test match.
I don't think I've ever tackled so much in a rugby game in my life. They were coming at us in waves and waves and waves, but it was the spirit was they're not going to pass. And I suppose the old saying is tackles win matches, and it certainly was true that day. We tackled everything, and I don't think we had the ball.
On reflection, that first 20 minutes of that first test match was the fastest game I think I've ever played in. It was, I mean, they just came from everywhere, the All Blacks did. So I had an eventful 20 minutes if I didn't stay the course.
A hamstring damaged in training forced Edwards to limp off, to be replaced by Chico Hopkins.
I knew that Ray Hopkins was more than capable at scrum half, and indeed the game was more or less the type of game that he was used to playing week in, week out with my Steg. A lot of forward running off the back of the scrum, lots of tackling at the base of the scrum. His service was neat and tidy to Barry, and Barry just dictated play from then on.
I remember saying to them before we went out, you know, when we go out here, we're not going to have the ball, and they're going to run at us until we're sick. But we're going to knock them down until they're sick. And that's the way it was.
There were other heroes. No Lion hesitates to name Barry John for the quality of his kicking in defence. A unique feature of media coverage were the comments passed on the play by the Lions' late coach, carried in the HTV production of 1971.
No clear passing here, not as slick as it might be again, you see, giving that short pass to McCormick to burst through, to take the tackle, set up the ruck, and try and win the ball and change direction. They didn't win it so well there. Mervyn Davis going through on his man. Mervyn playing his first game for about 3 weeks, and they were not really match fit.
Here now is John kicking for position. From the line-out, the Lions will move the ball. Watch for John Bevan scything in from the left to create panic. Ian McLaughlin, Mighty Mouse, stepped into the test team when the Lions lost their first-choice props at Canterbury. Here he opens the scoring in the series. No conversion, but 3-0.
And then we got that try completely against the run of play where Mouse charged down the ball, and we suddenly had scored a try. We couldn't believe it. And I think, well, there's no question in my mind of all the games of rugby that I've played over the years, that was the one that sticks out in my mind, because it was 8 very ordinary guys who simply stuck to the job that we believed that we had to do.
John Dawes going down on the tackle there. Note that he can't get away at all. He's being held down. They ruck over him, and yet you see John Dawes is penalised. It isn't done in New Zealand to go down on the ball. You've got to roll away immediately, and there are situations when you can't possibly do that. So back they come into the game. Penalty bang in front, and the score now 3 points each. Tremendous pressure from the All Blacks here. Here comes Meads bursting his way through. John Williams taking him, Mervyn Davis intercepting and saving our line.
The Lions did create some chances, one narrowly missed by Barry John. This one kicked by him for 6-3. Now the All Blacks are like angry tigers, goaded to retaliation.
Probing, looking for the gap, looking for support. He's got support in Cottrell. Cottrell now looking for support. Back it comes, but intercepted there by Barry. Back to Mike Gibson, as ever, clearing his line. But the pressure is still on, tremendous pressure. Jeremy Thomas right in the thick of it there.
That pressure finally came off in the closing minutes. Victory by 9 points to 3.
I remember coming in after the game and sitting down and saying, my God, did we win that game? Because on reflection, we really felt there was so much in the game we weren't really in it. But it was the day we destroyed the myth that the All Blacks were invincible.
The first test is the important one to win, because if we lose the second and the third, we're still in business and we could still draw the series.
No let-up for the British with the second test a fortnight away. More scrummaging and back row moves. And the likelihood that Gareth Edwards will be fit for the wide open spaces of Lancaster Park. A crowd of 60,000 lusting to see the Lions get a mauling, which they did. So were they mentally prepared for the all-black rebound?
Well, at the time we thought we were mentally attuned for this match, but in retrospect I don't think we really were. We had played 3 matches in the meantime, and suddenly the test was upon us. Well, the London Welsh and Wales tactic there of John Taylor moving ball to the left instead of the orthodox Barry John kick to the other side of the field. It's nice to see them under pressure at the beginning of a match, because we were under severe pressure in the first, for the first quarter of an hour or so. Now, working the narrow side, which Sid Goin does so often, a high kick, and I think that John hurt himself there. Guy going after the ball, Barry covering. They almost scored, but David Duck, unfortunately, minus the ball for us. Now, it's well worth noting from this set scrimmage that John, I'm sure, is injured. You see, John has missed the tackle there, which he very rarely does.
Carwyn's analysis, as always, close to the mark. Look again and see what he meant about John Williams, number 15. New Zealand 5/8, Burgess gets through him. People, as a rule, didn't do that.
And they win the ball to the ruck again, and again Burgess kicks.
But you can't keep a good man down. Early on, the Lions are still in the game. A kick from Going. JPR is clearly recovered. Gerald Davis in for an unconverted try. 3-3. Though dismayed, the crowd acclaimed the score. The Lions had enjoyed it too.
It was all about moving the ball. People forget that we only actually won about 40% of possession, and yet we managed to score some brilliant tries. And really, it was. I always liked the Barcelona game anyway. But, the whole tour party were geared onto that sort of play, so they knew when I had the ball, I was going to run the ball.
This was something we worked on in every practice. I seem to recollect the counter-attack, any high kick, which we took in our own 25, we tried to turn to our advantage.
Ian Kirkpatrick, one of the world's great back row forwards of the day, helps nose New Zealand ahead again. A burst close to the scrum, Going is at his heels to snap up a try that was converted for 8-3.
They use a great deal of the narrow side from a set piece and from the ruck situation. They work on the theory that they must reach the gain line as close to the set piece as possible. And Going is a great believer in the narrow side, as in fact were most of the New Zealand scrum halves that we came across.
Still, the Lions are willing to move the ball from their own line, under pressure.
Here we go. Mike Gibson testing Mains. Mains misses it. And now Mike Gibson is there to tackle him into touch. So often Mike Gibson on top put us in contention by his aggressive tackling.
Now McNaughton is offside on Edwards, still in the first half. And referee Pring awards the British Isles a penalty.
On the right side of the field for Barry. Not that it mattered, usually.
The flags are up. New Zealand's lead cut to 8-6. As the second half progressed, however, the All Blacks, with the sun on their backs, enjoyed a dominant period, running in more tries. One out on the far left. One by Kirkpatrick, rated among the best ever scored by a forward in Test rugby. The Lions bounce off him or flounder in his wake. A try that's worth a second look.
We're playing below par, and they took advantage of it to the tune of 22 points. And then I'm not sure whether they relaxed or we relaxed a little, but we then started to play the type of game which we had been playing in the provincial matches. And that led us to believe that if we could continue that into the next test, we'd have a very good chance of winning.
Down to defeat though, all square, 2 to play. Now, relaxation could be the keynote, with a 3-week gap before the 3rd test. During the tests, New Zealanders might berate the Lions in the streets. They could serenade them. The young Lions appreciated their heroic status. And wherever they went, it seemed to be carnival time. Match 19, Hawke's Bay, Napier. John Bevan, Gibson, J.P.R. Williams, Arneal, nervous swerve, just out of Pullin's reach. But the bounce favours Gerald Davis. This was the Champagne rugby that drew 750,000 people to watch the 24 games played by the Lions in New Zealand. Gerald Davis again. A late arrival on tour because of Cambridge examinations, Gerald was making up for lost time. In the kind of rain that falls in his native Carmarthenshire, he's in for a 4th. Then, after Sid Going's 2nd test thrusts, Derek Quinnell was selected to stop him in the 3rd.
In the 2nd test, Sid Going had slipped away a couple of times, and Chico took a bit of a battering, unfortunately, because he was acting the Sid Going role, and we did scrum after scrum after scrum, and you know, initially, I mean, he was beating me. Not easily, but he was beating me. But then after 3 or 4 days of constant training and awareness of what was happening, he had a bit of a battering in the end, and he wanted to know why Gareth wasn't doing it.
July the 31st. All roads, all pavements lead to Athletic Park, Wellington, where the Lions intended putting the setbacks of Canterbury behind them. The voice of coach Carwyn James.
I think we'd learnt a great deal from the 2nd test, and we were mentally attuned and really wanted to do well in this 3rd test.
Besides Going, Burgess had been identified as a danger man.
Another long line, which Colin Meads didn't able to take.
A menacing start by New Zealand.
Again, the switch to the narrow side. Again, Willie John winning the line out. Barry meant to kick, but moves the ball fluently on the line. Gerald Davis beating his man. What a thrilling runner Gerald is. Little chip ahead. Taken by Mains, by the wing, and what a tackle by John Taylor. The boys looking for the ruck situation. In they go. Back it comes, David Duckham to Barry, and he's got plenty of time to put that ball over. And that's the first score to us, 3 points to 0.
We were a very young side in '69. Barry, Gareth, Gerald, me, were all sort of youngsters, and we learned a hell of a lot on that trip. And when we went back, the one thing that Carwyn was absolutely determined we would do was express ourselves. And that really was the story of the tour. And the backs did express themselves wonderfully. I was there to support, and that's all Carwyn used to say to me all the time, is JT, get there, get there, get there. And just keep the lifeblood of the moves going, and that was what we did.
It was the intensive following up of John Taylor, wearing number 7, that led indirectly to the opening score. Barry John is in space as he aims for goal, 3-0.
To the back of the line, to their side, Mervyn Davis is quickly onto it. There's the restoration, John pulling in to Gareth on the blind side, over to Gerald, and Gerald is over.
9 minutes gone, 6-0.
This was a game that Gareth Gareth Edwards came into his own, I think. He came blind to my side and gave me the pass to go into the corner, just to squeeze in.
The conversion had gone over for 8-0. Today, Sid Going was getting no respite.
Driving through, and this aggressive tackle again. Winning the ruck situation. To come quickly onto his offset number. Bit of panic in the All Black ranks there.
The Lions about to strike again. Quinnell wins ball. Edwards goes infield. Speed, power, and the standoff has just a 5-yard sprint. What an opening 20 minutes.
Everything went very well. Barry had a drop goal, Gerald had a try, and then we were full of confidence, oozing confidence when that ball came off the back of the line. I just ran around and ran at it. Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately for Bob Burgess, he was in the way. And Barry was just at my side to score a crucial try. And, you know, when it happens like that against a side like the All Blacks, you wonder when they're going to sort of come back, when the whiplash is going to come from it. But we stuck at it, and in actual fact, if truth be known, we could have had a few more scores coming up to half-time.
But the tourists had to settle for a conversion. And a heartening 13-0 lead at the break. Now the Lions' turn to be on the ropes. Pull-in strike against the head enables John to clear. But All Black fury is on the boil. Skipper Meads, number 5, gets into the action. New Zealand can feel the match and the series slipping away from them. But their pressure means one try is inevitable. The scorer, Laurie Mains, in recent years, his country's coach.
Colin Meads doing the magician's act there, gets the support. Muller jumping into the ruck, should have been penalised for that. And unusual for the All Blacks to show that sleight of hand, moving this ball rapidly across to the three-quarters.
Carwin certainly enjoyed an occasional barbed comment about All Black rugby.
This game then resolved into a pattern where we saw far more of the All Blacks playing now with the wind in the second half. That was an uncomfortable moment for us, with 2 of our men going to the same high ball, and Gerald Davis is still on the ground.
The Lions in disarray, and a near miss for New Zealand as Grizz Wiley goes in. Frustration for the skipper.
Almost scored. There are hands going there. You see, he took that ball from ruck situation. Should have been a penalty against them.
The All Blacks still trail. Now, late in the game, injury has robbed them of key attacker Bob Burgess.
And the miss. Carrington going really well. But well tackled by Barry John.
At the line-out, Brian Lahore, New Zealand's ball winner, brought from semi-retirement for this vital test. The Lions' defence remains strong under pressure. Just watch big Willie John McBride's work rate as the tackles go crunching in. Into the final 5 minutes. 13-3 still seems a slender margin to the side in front. But to New Zealand, it's a mountain they can't climb.
It's time to...
That's how it feels when you know you can't lose a test series. The day's water sport had been well earned. But now, North Auckland and the threat that brings the Lions back to earth. 5 All Blacks in the opposition. But after 3 minutes, the tourists lead. David Duckham will score.
You couldn't fail but to play well with the sort of players we had around us. And with Gareth and Barry John at half-back, we always knew that we were going to be able to command the game once they had the ball. And with Mike Gibson playing at centre, having been picked as a fly half for the tour, remember, he was another, to work alongside John Dawes. The pair of them worked very, very well. And only good ball was going to come out, but most of it was good. And we had plenty of ball to run with. So I had loads of opportunities to actually express myself.
Duckham's try was converted. North Auckland's equaliser was followed by Barry John's thrust down the right, and JPR scoring try number 2. 30,000 spectators revelled in a tightly fought encounter, which the Lions recall as the hardest outside the tests. A flowing midfield attack, ending with JPR's scoring pass to John Bevan, clinched the spoils. For the Rhondda-born wing, it was a 17th try to equal a record.
Tony O'Reilly held that record of 17 tries, and I equalled it 2 games from the end. Perhaps if I caught a few more passes, I might have, broken the record. But so, I'm quite happy that I scored so many good players give me nice, easy tries.
Throughout their trip, the players experienced tourist attractions like Rotorua and its hot sulphurous springs. But minds were turning to home and the end of the adventure, 2 games to play. It was August when the only side that could spoil the Lions' unbeaten record against provinces, Bay of Plenty, ran out at Tauranga.
I think we're all rather anxious to win this last provincial game. And in fact, all the players are very keen to play. And although we had a test match on the Saturday, this was the Tuesday. We played Barry John, we played Mike Gibson. We had to leave John Dawes out because already he'd played 16 matches on tour and we felt he needed a rest. This was a very tough match. Bay of Plenty had plenty of time to prepare for us, and they'd prepared very thoroughly. Good work from the forwards, played it hard up front, and they prepared to run the ball. They prepared to take us on at our own game. And there goes their centre, inside centre, Kaipara, making a fine break there. Chris Ray making a break, giving it to Alistair Bigger, running really hard, and he goes over the line, and that try would have been awarded in this country. But not in New Zealand, not from Mr. Pat Murphy.
New Zealand wanted Murphy for the last test. They didn't get him.
Fine jiggling run from Barry, looking for support. Support is there, back it comes. Along the line, Chris Ray chipping it over. Being chased by Mike Gibson, takes one man, looks for the next one, tackles him again. And this is the kind of sterling defensive work that we saw from Mike Gibson throughout the tour. Firing into the ruck, Chico Hopkins looking for it. Out it goes, loose ball, Barry goes right, then left. Mike Gibson is there to clear up, looks for support. Bevan looking for his 18th try. But the cover defence is there. He's tackled, he slips the ball back, but the ball runs into touch. Bob Hiller taking a penalty. And over it goes, and Bob Hiller had scored his 100 points on tour. Chris Ray out to Mike Gibson, Bevan outside him, but Mike is over under the post.
Hiller put the conversion over, but 2 tries by the Bay of Plenty narrowed the gap to 17-14. A last-minute drop goal made it 20-14, and Barry John had scored in every game he'd played. The Lions were not without hero worshippers. Bob Hiller's century of points helped the Wednesday 15 to give the Test side tremendous support.
It was the sort of tour where we didn't feel there was us and them, no Test team and Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And in fact, I played, I think, on half a dozen Saturdays. We were probably more integrated between the midweek matches and the Saturday matches than any other tour. But we all felt we were fighting the same battle each day. It didn't matter whether it was midweek or Saturdays.
You strived each Tuesday or Wednesday, and you were playing your best to get selected for the Saturday side. We still had a record to keep ourselves, for God's sake. I mean, we were, you know, we didn't want to be beaten. Having been beaten in Australia, we knew exactly that we had to win. We had to win. And no, I don't think anyone really ever got fed up with being in the midweek side.
It was such a good side throughout. Whoever came in to replace anyone, virtually anywhere in the side, they were almost as good as what were the first choice, and it went very well.
I feel that this was a tour that was a good tour. We went out to do a job as a group. And I think everybody was stuck in part of it solidly from the start, and it was the whole that made it right down the line. I think we all felt part of it one way or the other. You know, as you can see here today, it was one of those tours that it was very smooth. Management was most probably the best it ever was. It just worked.
It happened over a short period for me, coming into the Welsh side in 1970, having waited a long time to get a cap, and then sort of in a period of 18 months I did it all, and it was just incredible.
Was the clash with New Zealand forwards as furious and as tense and as no holds barred as you had expected? Were you ready for it?
Oh, I think so. I mean, Carwyn, you know, his training sessions, you know, he came out with the saying, get your retaliation in first. But I mean, that was, the training sessions were actually harder than many of the matches. You know, they really were.
And now Auckland, a big stage for the final showdown. New Zealand had demolished 4 preceding British sides. Would this generation of All Blacks surrender a proud record? The Lions camp was jittery too.
Between 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock that afternoon, the cigarettes were going into our mouths, I mean, every few minutes. And there was some palpitations going on.
The last test of any series is always the delicate one. But I'm always disappointed with that one. Because I feel we could have done so much better, and we could have won it, and we could have won it convincingly and in some style. As in Wellington, there was a strong wind, and we faced it in the first half and went down badly. New Zealand played well, they scored the points which they had on the board.
That is a ploy, of course, we've seen a great deal of. I call it the Brian Lahore one. But we had a counter for this, except, of course, on this occasion, our number 8 wasn't there to hit the man coming out of the scrum.
So, opening the score for New Zealand, first 5/8 Cotterill. Fullback Laurie Mains converted. And soon afterwards, he added a penalty for 8-0. Barry John had missed with 2 shots at goal, but number 3 is through the sticks. Their morale restored, the Lions came strongly. A near miss for Duckham. But now something could be on.
It's Williams throwing in. Back comes to Gareth. Gareth tries to barge over, but we win the ruck. It's taken there by Dixon, and Dixon is over the line. And in the dying seconds of the first half, we brought the score back to 8 points to 6.
Ball thrown in, thrown a little bit too deep. I think an All Black missed it. It was driven round the back, and then I latched onto it very low, close to the line, drove through very low with everyone in behind me. All the All Blacks on top of me, but the referee in the right spot, behind the try line, able to see that it was definitely a try.
Barry takes the conversion, and it's 8-all.
No doubt the Dragon breathed fire when the Lions took the lead through Barry John's second half penalty. Now New Zealand's backs handle smoothly to set up their equaliser. First, luck will favour the Lions when an inside pass ends up in John Dawes' hands. The Lions fail to compress the line out. The All Blacks are not to be denied. Lister is New Zealand scoring. But all is not lost as his try stays unconverted. Momentum from Mervyn Davis, Dixon, McLaughlin. And the Lions' readiness to move the ball will pay off. JPR Williams, a superb strike.
On the way to the final test, which we had to draw to win the series, we were all very, very tense. And I said, so jokingly, I think I'm going to drop a goal today. And everyone burst out laughing. And then when I did it, it was like a dream come true. And I turned to the stand, and all the subs were up there with their arms in the air. It was such a
56,000 in the stadium, most willing New Zealand to win it in the remaining 26 minutes. In the event, Maine saved the match, but not the series.
I felt that we could have won that game had we pursued the rugby that we'd shown up until that moment. But sadly, it became a close affair in the end. It was so close that it was only a draw that we came away with, instead of a convincing farewell victory of generous proportions that we should have accomplished that.
I think in the fourth test there was that sort of edge to us that was missing. I think we were mighty relieved when the final whistle went to have a draw.
And John Dawes' men of 1971 had become the first Lions of the 20th century to win a major series abroad. Previous Lions sides had underperformed. In August 1971, there were conquerors to welcome home. The first rugby union players to become household names and superstars. Despite the distractions of decimalisation and entry into Europe, the then Prime Minister received the tourists at Downing Street.
I was delighted to do it. It was a great achievement, and I thought it ought to be recognised in some way or other. Perhaps I was also motivated by the fact that when England beat the Germans in the World Soccer Cup, Wilson's went and stood on the balcony with them at the hotel and said this was a great triumph for him. Well, I didn't want to do that sort of thing, but I hoped that the team would feel that perhaps having champagne at number 10 was better than standing on a balcony looking on the street.
A highlight of the 1996 reunion, the evening at a Park Lane hotel with Lions of earlier vintages. Formal kit still presents problems to trendy dressers.
We carried them for 20 years, we might as well carry them the rest of the way.
The adulation lingers on, and 1971 is like yesterday.
I think the last 2 or 3 days have been very enjoyable, and we've all settled back into old friendships very, very quickly.
We were all hugely competitive beasts, otherwise we wouldn't have been there. And for me, the great joy of the Lions has been the years that have followed. I didn't enjoy the tour all that much because I didn't feel that I was playing all that well. And at the same time, you're striving to get into the test team. We knew as dirt trackers that all we could do was to win the midweek matches and to try and keep the pressure on the test side. And I think we did that very well.
When we came back in 71, we might have played against each other for some of the guys for a year or two. And after that, some guys you just never saw for, what, now 22, 23 years. Like one of the players from Wales, Chico Hopkins. I just haven't seen him for 23 years or so. And Alistair Bigger, I met him there just 5 minutes ago. I don't think I've seen him for 23, 24 years. And I have to say, he's the best looking of the guys. He's the only guy who looks like what he looked like in 1971.
All the guys seem to lapse into exactly the same familiar formula that applied 20 and 25 years ago. It's as if no time at all had passed. And it's a marvellous experience to relive that for a little while.
The manager is a little less nimble than of old. The captain is in attendance. Tonight, a representative of each home country will stir the nostalgic brew.
On a very serious note, Chico and I have been sitting here for, what, 2.5 days now, watching videos of the Lions tour. And not a pip of either of us.
Now, let me put it straight now. It's not that he's tall, it's that I'm short. All right? Now, Bob didn't have many friends, only his mother and his father, his wife. So somebody had to talk to him on the tour, didn't they? And that was left to me.
Time's gone so quickly. Is it only 25 years since Chico described my stake as a veritable paradise? A town so isolated that the rugby team will only play away games if they're given a proper tour itinerary and a blazer badge. Is it only 25 years since John Spencer sent me a telegram in the middle of a game on a Saturday? I thought one of my close relatives had died. But it was a telegram apologising for the fact that he'd been forced to play for the Saturday game, and thus defected from our beloved T&Ws. Is it only 25 years since Dave Duckham scored 6 tries against Wairarapa Bush, every one of them under the post? Having got over the try and under the post, he then ran outwards, dot the ball down to make sure I took every conversion for the biggest bloody pug you've ever seen in a
Doug, of course, has been lauded, applauded, congratulated on making that wonderful prediction that we would win the series by two wins, 1 loss, and a draw. Doug, that was the biggest bloody burden you ever put on the team. Can you imagine having to draw the last match? Believe it or not, we had a thinking prop. Ray McLaughlin was so intellectual, he insisted on all the signals for the lineouts, all the signals for the scrummages, which way we were going to run. He even suggested that I let him know which way Barry was going to run or whether he was going to kick or not. That really does take a lot of believing, doesn't it? In actual fact, when he broke his hand against Canterbury, a lot of people think it was in hitting Alec Wiley. I trotted the bugger, I couldn't wait. And we talk about the great togetherness of this British Lions side, and certainly it was. We were never conscious that we were English, Welsh, Irish and Scots, because for that duration of time we were all Lions. But Carwyn faced the problem head on. The nucleus of the side of Welsh, people like Gerald Davis and myself and Barry John and Carwyn and what have you, our first language was Welsh. So Carwyn didn't suggest that we would hide it or we would only speak. He said there will be moments when we will be speaking Welsh to one another. It's only natural. He said, we won't be doing it necessarily to be rude. But of course, the lads could see the advantage of it, especially on the field of play. But also when Carwyn insisted that we went to Welsh societies on Sunday evenings. And although the boys weren't that keen initially, when they realized there were some very pretty Welsh girls with ancestral background there, they not only enjoyed coming to those Welsh societies, but they also wanted to talk Welsh and learn to speak Welsh, which Barry and Gerald and I gladly did. What we didn't realize, and maybe it's only in hindsight we can realize these kind of things, never set anybody up because you never really know when it comes back to roost, so to speak. After the great success of the Lions, we didn't realize that we'd be wined and dined, fated up and down the country. And one such occasion was in Merthyr Tydfil, just like on an occasion like this evening. So 28, well, maybe not quite. But there were 29 Lions at that occasion also. And Carwyn and Doug, who had spoken at great length in New Zealand, suggested that maybe one of the Lions should address the evening on that occasion. And little did we realize that John Spencer will be the one to answer and to speak on behalf of the Lions. Started off, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," and he thought, this is it. He said, "I'm going to really show what I learned on this tour," and turned to the lady mayoress who was sat just underneath him, and he said, "Ashud Maino, Asnak Yidi de Benstikai, Beastland Dindi." Now, for those Welsh speakers, they know exactly what he said. John Spencer thought he said, "Good evening, Lady Mayoress. It's a pleasure to be here this evening and to meet you." What he actually said is, "If you don't shut up, I'm going to stick a finger up your bum."
And I remember being in my bed, like a good boy, early in the evening. And I was in the annex of this hotel. And down below, I think it was David Bellamy who put it there, but it was a beautiful sort of flowers and all sorts of things. And as the night went on and I'm sitting reading my newspaper and quietly, I could hear this, I think we were looking for David Bellamy among the plants downstairs. It was breaking glass and all sorts of things. I could hear Doug Smith roaring, "What are you bastards?"
So I immediately went upstairs to Willie John McBride and I said, "Here, what the hell are you doing?" He's sitting in his bed with his pipe and he said, "Oh, nothing at all, manager, nothing at all." And there was a rolling of the curtain and Arthur Lewis fell out. And then a rolling of a mat and Sean Lynch fell out. And it was hysterical.
And I never forget, Lynchy sort of got himself out. He said, "How did he know I was in there?"
And I'll also tell you, when Willie John was telling that story about Sean sticking out from under the bed at Greymouth, I was involved early on in that fracas. And I can admit tonight, confess tonight for the first time ever, Carwyn James, when he first happened on the scene, he grabbed a hold of me and he clipped me in the ear. He clipped me in the ear the way my dad did when I was about 12 years of age. And he sent me to my bed. And I went. I was just a wee boy 25 years ago. I was a mere child. And all of a sudden, I was climbing on a plane to go away with my heroes. Barry, Gibbo, Gar, and Gerald, and JPR. Guys that were my heroes. And I'm getting on the plane to go and play rugby with them. But before we got on the plane, I had to spend one night in London sharing a bedroom with Willie John McBride. I was going on my first ever British Lions tour. I had 5 suitcases. And my mum had packed them. And you think I'm kidding? I had more vests than the whole team put together. Willie John McBride was going on his 4th Lions tour. He had one wee sports grip. And he was sitting in his bed, in his pyjamas, puffing his pipe. Now, I held this man in such awe, and I was trying like hell to think of something to say to the great man, and my mind was a total blank. And eventually the big man put me out of my misery. He looked across at me with that look that you saw in that picture, and he uttered these incredible words, "Brownie, do you fucking snore?" I am seemingly a bad snorer. And of course, being a big Scottish hard man, I said to him, "No, Willie John, no, Willie John, no, no." And I can tell you, I can actually confess here tonight in front of everyone, I did not disturb the great man's slumber for 1 second, because I sat up all night and read a book.
As you look round this room here tonight, and as you look at the photos that you've seen, the pictures you've seen, and you think of the values that are getting put on players nowadays, you've seen the money that young Scott Quinnell's getting, which is wonderful. What price is Dad? I don't grudge any player these days a penny that they get. Good luck to every single one of them. But if you look at the guys that were on that tour, millions couldn't buy us. But can I tell you something else? If you sat down and tried to put a value on what we got from that tour, and I'm not talking about a test series, the boys before have talked about it, we have got a brotherhood, a camaraderie that we have got for life. And we've been together this week for just a few days, and it was as if we toured last month.
Whether you lived in England, Scotland, Ireland or Wales, you could delight in the Lions' triumph. They represented all of us. For their part, the reunion has revivified a valuable, unique episode in their collective experience.
I wouldn't swap this day for the era I played in and the people I played with and against. I know it might sound sick and old-fashioned. I promise you I wouldn't. You know, the fun and the banter, you know, it was terrific days. You know, it shaped your mind, your world, your life, and it still does.
I think the most valuable thing I find is that I don't feel that we were from different countries. We were all the same team. It transcends all international barriers to me.
If we don't have Lions tours, we won't have a benchmark upon which to judge the standard of British rugby as a combined force. And I think it's important that we do that. And let's remember, thinking back over the generations, all of us, the peak of our careers was to play for the Lions. Playing for our country was always wonderful, of course, but to play for the Lions was just that one step better.
I wanna go home, I wanna go home, I wanna go home. This is the first trip I ever been home. Oh, well, the first day we got drunk, we go into the captain's son. The constable had to come and take him away.
In a new era of professionalism with the demands of clubs and the obligations to a contract and the finances that are being paid, it looks as if the Lions concept is coming to an end. When that does come, it will be a very sad day indeed, because as I say, every player has an image of being a Lion, which is different to that of being his country's international player.
I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. My feelings are broken, I want to go home.